No, hard.
I can get that letter in your phone. I'll just
I
call Don and tell him you don't get supper tonight.
I'm gonna take a call.
Okay, I know how that is.
Oh, yes.
All right, you guys are recording. And there's an agenda. So you guys are good. I'm just gonna sit here and take notes for you guys.
So thank you, everybody, for coming. You know, it's a pretty important meeting to have for you all, so we want to make sure you have these meetings, you have them as frequently as you want to have them. Discuss what needs to be discussed, in any resolution we can find of things or ways to work through any issues, we can do that. I'm Mike Neshing, one of the town councilors, will be your I think it reads something to the effect of, you know, the supervisor chairs it, but or their designee, so I'll be the supervisor's designee this year with John's additional responsibilities and things. So I'm here, thank you, Tom, for putting together an agenda, because I was talking to Carrie about that the other day, and I was looking for stuff, and then I was trying to get some things from John from last year, and didn't quite get it all in time, so I saw that pop up and thought maybe there was a little divine intervention because I was anxious about it.
Well, obviously, this is a little bit of a work in action being the first year, and we're working through a lot of things that you can see on the agenda and stuff, and you know, obviously, we really appreciate, because, you know, obviously it benefits us to have this, and, you know, a lot of these guys are volunteering their time, and, you know, and I'm sure you've got plenty of other things to do too, so we appreciate it, too. Hopefully, it's a good way of communication and reviewing these things, and I think it's good for now and in the future.
We'll go around and just introduce everybody, so.
Sure, I'm Jerry Gould, and I'm a semi-retired geologist in environmental consulting business. And got nominated, I guess, or asked if I want to sit here, so.
Perfect person to be on. Videos type.
Yeah, it's got good assets, that's for sure. Tom Kinsella with TH Kinsella, and owner of the board.
Reason we're here.
The reason we're here.
Very good, Zach. I'll get by and
Yeah, we get you a t-shirt that says that.
I want one too. John Palmer, Jason to the quarry. So Miramar up there now, simply with explosives, still have explosive blasters license, California certified.
Excellent. Welcome to our first meeting. And then, Tom, since you sent it, I'll let you start going through the agenda if you'd like.
Yeah, I guess the minutes that from last time, which I don't really know, I mean, they're very extensive. I went through them that I think Duffy recorded, and some, I don't know if this is a program or what, but there was for approval of those, there was one thing I saw in there that I'm not sure where it came from, I just wanted to correct in regards to on page 3, it mentions about the Jamesville Quarry doing seismograph readings. Apparently I answered no, but that's not the case. I mean, all these places do, anybody that classes, they're given to do seismographs, and the reason that question came up is I don't know if you're aware or not, but there's been some blasts that have occurred at the Jamesville Quarry that they thought was us.
So you reported to us.
And it does, so you know, it gets felt all this way, and you know, if you get on some of the neighborhood media, you know, people are saying, what was that, you know, and of course, you know, usually we get a call or something, so that's where the Jamesville Quarry discussion came up, and I think it's still, I think it happened here a month or so ago also. Yeah. So we do get questioned or blamed or for that, but they do side effects.
Have you blasted in the last month or so?
No,
I didn't think so.
we've had 4 blasts total this year, and basically at 2 different dates. We do blast in one layer, blast in the other layer. So we had a total of 4 blasts.
Do you, when we get the calls from, I don't even know if anybody knows this, but I'm just interested because I feel that complaints from Kirkville, if they feel when Jamesville blasts, if they are, if that's the area where in fact these people are calling from, probably several areas, but do you get much people in Kirkville, or do you think we get it when it blasts?
I'm trying to think the furthest we've ever got a complaint from. Maybe, over there on Dewey Lawn, I mean, I've never, if they're feeling it, that's air concussion, in Jamesville, and Jamesville. You know, because we rent space in there and somewhat familiar with their operations over there, they have changed some of their blasting procedures over there a little bit. And some of them have gotten larger in size, which, you know, displaces more air for concussion and I think they've scaled back a little bit. I was surprised that this, recent one, I don't know if it was October, or November, there was a something in there that. Then you look at the social media, yeah, so I'll just let one go.
Yeah.
We're, we think like it's bad, and obviously it's not. That's air. No, we don't. Most of. And we get some, we don't get many either from South Springs Road area, you know, which is pretty close and it's. Down, I think it's because it's on solid rock where some of their homes are on that, overburden material, it gives a little bit of the jello effect to it. The blasting experts tell us. Do you concur, John?
I do, and in fact, John, that we were talking about this at the last meeting, but that last blast that the other site there.
Yeah.
How many calls did you say you guys got? That
Oh, I forget. Do you remember that thing?
So.
Yeah.
It was a very large,
Yeah,
no complaints though, as far as I can tell from the complaint form, it was just a bunch of calls, so.
but yeah,
Yeah, so. But anyway, so that's where that time, and so in regards to the minutes from the last meeting, that was my only comment on there that I saw.
Anybody else have any review of the minutes or anything changed? Do you are you all comfortable with accepting those minutes as written with that change that Tom mentioned? Or do you wanna sit on it, review them and then go on?
I haven't looked at them, to be honest, but
Yeah, it was the, yeah, you're on there. It was a, email that Duffy sent out in your September.
Can you, please forward that to me and I'll pick that up on the agenda as well for.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, we can all make that change that you just.
Yeah.
Discussed. If you could just document that.
Hopefully
change
you're
for
all
me,
picking up,
send it to me, Tom.
on the.
Excuse me?
Can you document the change?
Oh, okay.
When you,
gotcha.
when you send it to me,
Sure.
just in the email, just document what needs to be changed and I can go ahead and make that edit and I'll make sure it gets posted on the agenda. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if it's acceptable, I'll move the approval of the minutes as modified. In a second.
I'll say
also,
I won't vote because I wasn't here, so I'm abstaining.
Perfect. Call the question.
Yep, all in favor? Okay, well, it passes, they'll be amended. And what I was gonna say is I apologize for interrupting. Carrie was giving that feedback. Hopefully you're seeing that we're gonna try to treat this more like a traditional committees. And then we'll have somebody to assist with the council, put them up in public. Right, because I think, Greg, you spoke a few meetings back of the Quarry Commission was lacking a few things, expectations, so really talking to the supervisor was the goal, the board to make sure that it was more consistent, meets the public's expectation of the commission to the board.
And then let me compliment you for having followed up on. It's now on the town agenda board, it's as the documents attached to the agenda. Consistent with what you're doing with the other town board and committees. So I appreciate it, thank Carrie for the good work in making much of that happen.
A lot of work, goes back several months, her staff researched some really good, it did cost us a little bit more money. But it's also bringing us into the future here and updating our things, but software that we now have. makes everything consistent. It's everything you were basically looking for. She was already working on it. I couldn't say too much because we didn't pass it in the budget, so we don't want to get everybody accepted or excited until it was accepted, so. Yeah, that's where we are to continue this. It's not a trend, but it's business as usual. I don't take us into our next,
Yeah, so I think, number 2 and 3 can be kind of combined, which is, the notifications for people that want to be notified when we're blasting, along with the complaint form that the town has. So on our website, we have a notification form people can fill out and get on the call list, if you will, or the preferred method of contact. I mean, in the past, there's always a call, and there's always gonna be a few that probably want the phone call, but whether it's being a text message or an email. And I believe also you posted on your website when you get notification. So that's our way of communicating with the public for anybody that wants to know our blasting schedule. We also have a historical data on there to when we blast, so if somebody says, well, was that some of it blasted, that's on there that somebody could actually look. The actual complaint form though is on the town's website, right? I believe. So if we get phone calls on there, like you'll notice on some of the complaints that we did review, you'll notice you'll see where they called us, but we filled out the form on the town website to make it official. But I think that'll continue to improve and with neighbors, some people like they'll call up and, a little frustration or whatever, and talk to somebody and ask, but some probably would just rather get on the website and fill out their own complaint form, if you will. So both of those are up and operational at this point, where at the last meeting we were still at the final stage, so those are working. And we'll tweak those, this is a learning experience for everybody, I think, and as we see, we can make changes and tweak those. We don't have, just to bring you up to a little bit of speed there, somebody asked, well, can you do your schedule, what's your schedule next year for blasting? We don't schedule more than a few days out in advance, and then sometimes we will cancel due to weather circumstances or unforeseen circumstances, so we don't really have a schedule that we can publish for the year, the month, or anything like that, but as soon as we know, we let people. So I think that's a change, and I think it's so far the few blasts we've had have been successful. So
I did the tour my first year as a counselor, to be in the tour with Ingrid. And it was very educational and eye-opening. But I did have a question. I don't know if you remember that. I forgot this question that I had, but it made me remember just as you were speaking. What came first, the chicken or the egg? And I mean, so what existed first? The residences that are most closely affected by this, or the location, your location for it? So
well, we started up there in the mid-60s. There were certainly residents around the Quarry, Salt Spring Flies. The Changing Seasons subdivision started in 1979, I believe. So I don't know if that's the chicken or the egg, but
yeah, it's kind of couple chickens and different eggs and stuff. But just historically, I like to know that.
So what I would add to that, two things. One is the footprint of the current quarry had expanded, and I know that became the basis of the 2004 agreement. So its location, yes, it was there, but it wasn't.
It's expanded.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great information to know. I'm gonna sit here with you all those other things.
I can give you maps.
Well, that's great, and it might even be something we put on your website with it, so people can see the footprint and history.
So let me make one comment about numbers 2 and 3. Again, I think it is great that the form is now up on the town website. What is probably still causing as many phone calls as are happening is that knowledge of its being there is still somewhat limited. So people in our neighborhood, which is obviously highly affected by it. We have a website, we notify people, most people know. Or should know about the form. But as you get outside the environs of changing season, my guess is more residents of the town at large. Have never heard. And so the question is, how do we notify residents of the availability of this for them to register any concerns and complaints?
I have a thought for that. So in my neighborhood, it's not blasting quarries, it's poop and urine. And Meadowbrook limestone puts the smell on, it's terrible. Okay? It's part of the reason I ran on 23 is that we weren't getting, I know it's the county and I did run for ledge, but it's still within the town and it's the quality of life for the residents. And I do feel that the town can push the county to get these things done, and we did. And they came, and the commissioner at the time set up a mailing list just for the people that were in this radius, whatever radius we did. And they signed up, and it was supposed to be regular updates on the project to mitigate. In this case, not project or mitigation, but it would be points of information to send up. But it, you know, it's not like you were automatically added to this. You know, if you had a question, it was offered. So say Duffy fields a call and it's a complaint. So the form is here, but also we do have an info list where we're sending out regular updates or information as we get them to people with concerns about blasting and quarry. Would you like to receive those? They say yes, you can take their information, give it to them. I don't know if it's the perfect answer, but it is a start in order to get people informed. But I do also know that maybe, I don't know the percentages, if you guys could fill me in. It's high, if it's low, if it's higher percentage of older users who aren't so keen on checking emails or using emails or don't have emails, we would look into a different option to get people informed. But I do know John speaks well on this, so I'll let him explain it, but mailing everybody is not always an option, right? Because of certain laws and impacts, right?
Yeah, we're in a interesting position. It's anytime the town expends funds, if you can attribute it to a subset of the residents, generally speaking, we need a special district or a law or a good reason to be doing that. And I don't know if this rises to that occasion of doing the mailing. But like you've been talking about, the goal is, we know these people, we can engage with them. It's just about finding what is the channel that works for you and making sure that they're hooked up on that channel and making sure they know that that's available.
Greg, who do you think would be interested in this outside of your neighborhood? Did you find people like up near John that were?
So there are people in Salt Springs and the areas east of the quarry for sure. But I think part of what has happened is with the non-Kinsella blast that people are reporting, that's obviously getting outside of the boundaries in your proximity. I mean, as I look at the websites like Next Door Neighbors or those kinds of websites, you know, I see people in Pompey and in Mandy's in the village who are, you know, claiming it. It's not you, but those are the complaints you're going to.
Would you suggest that we proactively put something on there if there's a bad occurs like that?
On your website?
Yeah.
Sure. Sure. I mean, that obviously is, people are gonna call you. And if you have your folks inform people both of the existence of the website as well as the form, that helps, because that will, you know, they're not gonna come to the town first unless they're really PO and, you know.
But even I would say for blasting, now if you don't know the day ahead, 2 or 3 hours ahead, if you notify us, it's a simple, Duffy's been fantastic with these info things he does, he standardizes it, they look great. Can get it at least on social media that, hey, we've been notified that within 2 or 3 hours, you're gonna experience, you know, cells will be this. And then also if we do create info, blast, email, I would call it blast just because it goes with this. So that could, he could send that as well.
think that somewhere else on the agenda here, as far as. I guess that would be the, who are we notifying that we would like to be notified that we're gonna blast? And because Craig and we were talking this down below here, I think it's, you know, so that they also get the report, you know, as you know, or I'm not sure, if you know, but there's a independent seismograph set up permanently at one of the neighbors' house that the readings get, you know, it's automatic, they come, you're getting email, Craig, I believe, I get an email, but the town should also get an email.
Yeah.
You know, that has that. So who would you like us to notify, hey, we're blasting today, and then, hey, you know, add you guys also to that email that Fiber Tech sends out with results.
John, I would, my recommendation would be Duffy, because then he can disseminate it, because that's kind of his role, but I know that you gotta monitor.
Yeah, and I think we set up the Quarry Commission email. And that might just be the best way to do it, because that'll loop everybody in on.
It's a group email?
Yeah, and that'll loop everybody here in and get Duffy, and then also too, you know, if if it's going out and, you know, Duffy's not available, it's at least a mailbox that someone else can get to check. But yeah, I can.
So we'll do that both for the notification and results.
Yeah.
Ironically, one of the complaints, actually two of the complaints, came from the location where the sighting work is located.
Yeah, do they get the email, you know?
I don't know if they're on the list, but about 3/4 of our neighborhood are on our website, so when our notification goes out, the majority will know. And even if they weren't home at the time, it'll still be up when they return, so it will happen. So,
For clarity and unwarranted blame, it might be nice if on the town side, potentially hunters, if we could get Jamesville quarries, we could get their last schedule, just post them. That way people can see, if somebody wants to complain, oh, it's Jamesville, oh, it's Jamesville, and oh, Arkansas actually hasn't even blasted it
Do we-
in 4 months.
Does Jamesville have, like, do they use their website do we know, do they say, hey, we're blasting in 6 hours or anything like that?
Oh, they have notification. I'm sure there's certain people
Yeah.
that notify, but they're similar to us. I know they'll change and reschedule blasting, you know, it's a short term, it's not really a schedule.
But we can do, what I'll do is, I'll ask Duffy to reach out to the Jamesville Quarry and just say. If whatever information you're putting out, we would like to be able to parrot it, and then we'll see if we can, I don't know if we'll be able to like plug it into the website. But at the very least, we can make it so that when you go to the Quarry Commission page,
Yeah.
to do a complaint, you can say. Please check here's a link to the Jamesville site, you know, because. Generally speaking, we're gonna try to get as much information there as possible about what you're doing. And then if you go there and there's no information about an upcoming blast, then hopefully we can kick them over to James.
Right.
But it's something, it'll help some folks, some people will still fall through, but it's something we can definitely do.
But even if it's that day or even after, we'll take
Right.
it, just FYI.
Yeah.
Jamesville just blasted, this is, the genesis for this was.
Yeah.
I think that would stay awful. Just people.
is any of their property within the town?
Yes, they're not mining with it.
Okay.
Yeah, they've gone a few years back and purchased. Yes.
Well, they've changed names numerous times, but it's always been the same parent company. Heidelberg is what it's called now.
Oh.
They've only went under one name, it's a German company. They're worldwide, but yeah, Hanson was an English company that was bought by Heidelberg.
That's correct.
We good with the blank forms and the web? And I think number 4, we discussed already, which was a result of what Craig was suggesting to you guys about, you know, being the notifications and the stuff. So I believe we discussed that earlier about the changes there and making it public. I don't know if there's any more discussion
Well, I do, so, and I talked to, I'll be the liaison to the planning department this year as well, codes. And I talked to Tom Poitras, our director, and, we both had a question of where does this information get kept, where should it be stored? And I think if we're having a commission, we should store it historically as we do for other things here. So for instance, all items that sent with that in one, for review and whatnot, we would try to talk about internally how to store that, and it really is, well, it's pretty simple now because we scan it. I mean, just create another database that will house that. Carrie, we need, and Carrie's our records management officer, de facto as being clerk. Do you need to have if they scan something to you, is that sufficient, or do you have to have a physical copy of anything and then scan it ourselves?
No, as long as the scan quality is a good scan quality, you can read what's on it, it's not blurry or anything, scan is fine. And Tom and I went through that with all the old reports and stuff, where we scanned them, and I've got all that already set aside, so. Lisa and I already have a folder in Laserbeach, which is one of our documents centers. We've already got a folder in there for the Quarry Commission. It has all of the reports that Tom has sent in, got them all already scanned in. This is sufficient for storage. These aren't going anywhere. They're going to be on the website, and they're always going to be on this agenda. So I don't think we need to create another database. In my opinion, I think you're gonna lose stuff if you start creating databases.
Well,
I can work with Tom on.
that's just a word I had, I didn't know if that,
Yeah,
but
I'm sorry.
however, electronically you deem is sufficient, because obviously being a municipal appointed commission will be subject to FOIA laws. And, you know,
Right.
the clerk's office gives something, we want to make sure we're not.
And we're gonna submit also a year-end report, right, that's got everything consolidated in there. You know, we used to do it in paper form, we don't think about this thick, and now we're gonna do it all electronically. And it won't be a 63 tab, to be a whole. And get to, and then go through it just like you would if it was obviously a book, but, and so you won't have to worry about the scan quality if they're all electronic.
Carrie, is all that available to the public directly through your website, or would they have to get some special access?
I believe,
So anything that is on the agenda, publicly available.
Right,
Anything that we've got posted on the site is publicly available. Generally speaking, the only other documentation you're gonna find on the website is like something that's been before another board as like a project. But basically any of the stuff that wouldn't otherwise be readily available, it's foilable. Our foil system, once one person foils it, it like preempts the next person, and it's like, here, you don't even need to submit this. I think this is what you're looking for. And then any of the other stuff that, anyone on the commission wants to get up there, we can put that on the website, and then it's completely available to the public, available by Google search. So, it's anything that we need to get out, it makes sense to be on the Quarry Commission page. And then, like I said, anything that's been before a board, it's already gonna be available on the website.
if you guys feel it's beneficial to put the year-end reports up, I most certainly can work on starting that. We can have like the year before, and then we can have like an archive center, so, we'll have 25 up as soon as we get it, or 26, wherever you're gonna start, and then we can have the rest that are in our archive that we will be able to handle. We are switching to a new website, so I'm not quite sure how it will look at that point, but I mean, if that's something you guys feel would be beneficial, I can most certainly do that. It shouldn't be a big deal.
And like I said, I think everything will be consolidated into that year-end report. It'll be pretty easy to find whatever information it is in terms of, the blast, the schedule, any complaints, all the minutes from the Quarry Commission. So we're hoping to get that consolidated for review. It should be fairly easy.
So what I'm hearing Carrie asking is, obviously going forward, they're gonna be in electronic form. Are you asking that the previous reports to be scanned and then also be made available?
I think we have previous reports,
Yeah.
don't we?
Yeah,
That's something you and I did when you were coming in front of the board for the zone changes. So I have all the previous reports, I believe.
And those
So-
would be archived, is that?
When I say archive, they just want to be in the forefront of the website. It'd be a folder that would say archived reports. And then you click on that and they would be in there. They just want to be up front and center. So if somebody wanted to go back and look for one from 2019, there it is. They just go in the archive. But if they want the most current one, we'll have that up front,
Thank you.
of course.
Craig, a lot of this stuff was in regards to your comments. Are you content with with number 4? Well,
Sorry, I condensed your agenda a little bit.
yeah, I don't have yours in front of me, Terry, but in terms of public notification, the meetings, the time, the
Yeah.
agenda, we're good with that?
Yeah, we're
subject to the, okay. So,
This is what you're at, right?
yes. Okay, good. So I guess we're moving on to new business.
I had, and it's not really new business, it's probably a little bit of business, but I think you all had something great out. And I sent those. I had it set up to easily just pop it open, but I sent them to the attorney to look at it, because I don't think there was been any feedback yet. And, he gave me his feedback. And only really had one substantial recommendation. That was, that there's it mentioned to 4 meetings, but currently there's only 3 meetings listed. And then paragraph 4 states there will be quarterly meetings, but then only has 3 meeting dates instead of 4. That might just be the way things are for the commission currently, or then no suggested changes or revisions. My suggestion is to list out the quarterly ones that you have on there, but to add that we may meet more or less frequently if needed. Because I would want to leave quarterly. I don't think we would pass these today, because I think there's, when I was looking at it, there's probably some more things needed. But I wouldn't want to wait until April to meet to pass bylaws.
Yeah, I mean, the little bit of history in that, I think when the commission was first formed, we talked about quarterly meetings. And then after we met and talked a little bit about it, we realized that, in the winter time, we're really not a lot of operations going on. So we felt that to meet in April to talk about nothing, as you can see, most of the time it's talking about blast and, the factor, so on. But there's such little activity, we didn't feel it was necessary for that first quarterly meeting. I think we talked about May, September, then year end. I think it was,
So we
where
could
the 3 came from.
not define it and say quarterly, we could say that, there'll be an annual meeting, which the commission will determine the meetings for next year, set a date. Or we can keep it the way you have it, that's fine too, but just add something saying, we do have the option to meet more frequently.
I'm gonna point this out to you.
Yeah, I did,
So you could change that to say additional meetings or something else. In other words, there's language in there that allows for more meetings.
Yeah.
Bylaw.
yeah, and so I would read, it would be additional meetings. And then, because, special meetings would have, you'd have to determine, like, this is what we're meeting about solely.
Right.
Okay, so, we did additional meeting. Yeah,
So
that might be bigger.
we had a discussion, let me just draw. A copy of that. Okay. In our early discussion, we had a couple of things that were addressed. One is to say, instead of what had originally stated, the second Friday, that changed it to the 4th Tuesday. There was that language that was altered. And then there was also, on the backside of the second page, if you'll have it, under complaints alleging damage to the will be reported within, should be 30 days instead of 2 business days. That was another of the alterations we made. And
Is that on the one that we have currently?
no, they weren't.
Oh,
You want to, I'll hand this to you if you want to make, or to carry, so she can make those alterations. And then if you want to change this language from from special meetings to additional meetings.
I think that was.
That would be in accord with what we were just saying from the attorney. Okay.
And so then, did we find out, Carrie and John, or is that still a question I should send Joe, subject to the public meeting laws? Because then, how we do that, we would have to get it to the clerk with enough time that she can put it out to the public that there is a meeting.
Yeah, so we're still.
We're still-
Eric's been looking at that, but I think. With the changes you made, you could definitely adopt that as amended. And then any changes are just gonna change lead time as far as like when things need to get there. That's all process, doesn't necessarily need to be included in the bylaws. But I think if you did it as amended and then, it's gonna take a little while, cause. If it is what we are expecting, there's a lot of work to be done this year. That being said, this is probably one of the first groups that we would start going after to get into compliance.
And we actually have already started doing that
Right.
by
Yeah.
printing the agendas online, putting the minutes online. I'm gonna, obviously, we're not live right now with this video. Once we're done, it'll be posted online. So we've kind of started that process,
Right.
Mike.
Yeah,
So
It's on
I,
the agenda that you can see on the website.
yeah, so what would be very helpful for me is if you guys could at least set the next meeting, so I can make sure the boardroom's available for you guys. And whether it's myself or Duffy, one of us are here to take minutes. That would be very helpful, and then, like John said, you can approve those as amended, or however you guys wanna do it.
So then I'll ask, has everybody reviewed those bylaws?
It's been a little bit, I thought about the review.
Do you want more time to review them, or do you wanna vote on?
I don't have notes on mine that I've got, that I saw in the paper here, so. I'm good, whatever the rest of it.
And I don't wanna rush to anything.
They're fine, citizen did run through about. Outlining 31 meetings, and I think we've already suggested all our revisions. We.
Yeah, I'll give it to Carrie, and then you want her, we could just make a copy and keep your original.
Sure, I'm happy to go around and make a copy.
So you're gonna amend the bylaw.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
With the amendments that Greg just mentioned.
So there are 3. Again, before we vote on,
Needed,
my guess,
do you need it for the amendments, or we get some?
They can just say
Talk about
it.
those
Oh,
yeah, those.
oh.
Yeah. You put 4 things in front of me, I'll remember the first one, and remember why you even started, so, okay, and that's a function of age, those of you who are there. So the question is, we changed it from the second Friday to the 4th Tuesday. And the question is, do you want to have that explicit language, you want to keep that? The second change would be changing special meetings to additional meetings, otherwise the language there remains the same. And then the third change was the complaints being required within 30 days instead of 2 business days. And I guess if it's 30 days, is that 30 calendar days or is that 30 business days, or we just leave it, is that? Because the lawyers will say, well, 30 business days is different than.
No, listen, I do that for a living, and I will roast people on the language of what a day is and what the intent of the day is, or the mutual understanding is. What do we use officially for the town when we post? Because I want to be consistent with our committees or what the town
What
does.
do you mean, when we
If
post?
you post something and it references like, you must have this in by, 5 days, do you really, are we using business days?
I don't give 5 days, I do an actual date. So if we want something by, in 2 days, it's going to be, I need it by January 1st of 2023.
So
Whether someone's making a if someone has a 30-day window to make a complaint, so.
Oh, I apologize. I see what you're saying, honey. If we follow what we do for FOIL, it's business days.
I was gonna
So
say,
I would do business days
that's
because,
because of our hours of operation and days of operation, like, you know, we could make,
Fall on.
it gives you extra
Right.
time to do.
or on a holiday, if you wanna give them that time. So I would say business days.
Okay, so then what I would propose is that we use 20 business days, because that is 4 normal weeks. Does that make sense?
And it's specifically for,
For complaints.
complaints.
Right, complaints alleging damage from blasting or other port effort should be reported within. I mean, it could be longer if you want to have.
So
But that's approximately one.
I mean, these are the bylaws, but it's also a permit too, so, you know, we don't want that contradicting the town permit.
I think if you're making a complaint and you say 30 days, it's 30 calendar days, right?
Right.
So if they blast on the 15th and you wanna make a complaint, you should have your. By the 15th or 16th, how many days the calendar. I think for a complaint, it makes sense to be calendar days where, I don't know how's that.
And to be honest with you, listen, somebody's gonna have a complaint,
Or 30 days from blast.
you know, we're gonna, well, it'll be relatively, we're gonna address whenever the complaint comes in regardless, you know, somebody. Well, we think overtime is, you know, we're gonna investigate it regardless of when it comes in, when it was allegedly, you know, which blast was it that might have.
What's the history of limiting language to limit the complaints?
I don't believe we've ever had a time frame on when somebody can complain.
I like it better without having that. Craig, do you have any historical references to why there was a 30-day window for complaints?
Actually, I think it was taken from your form. When we originally wrote.
That could have been from the original quarry, well, it used to be the quarry monitoring committee. You know, it's nice to get them in a timely fashion, but again, whatever. We're gonna deal with whatever complaint comes in, whenever it comes in.
Oh, yeah, it might reveal some kind of process improvement you can make or something.
No, I'm thinking beyond whether. You know, let's say there's an alleged damage from a blast or, and. Well, often the blasting company becomes involved in that also, because they're the ones that, you know, they're subcontracted out, they're the expert, they're the ones that know that sort of thing. I could ask them if there's a time frame, that they use, you know, other places, because they're.
Yeah, well, and down the hill that you're rolling there, when you say damage, it makes sense that there's usually timeframes placed on a claim. The claim and a complaint, while they can be related, are two separate things, right?
Yes.
So a complaint can be wide open. I'm not claiming any damage. It was, you know, it shook everything. It was scary. We look into this, but it was, 2 months ago. Sorry, I didn't have time. But then there's the claim of, it blew my window out. It's been 2 months.
What are the bylaws referring to? What's the
30 days.
So the language of the bylaws that you say here is complaints alleging damage from blasting.
Yeah,
So we probably should have a time for, you know.
Two
So
business
it's
days.
different than just normal.
Complaint, right?
The damage is 2 business days. Says right there, not 30 days. The 30 days.
That's what it originally said. We changed it to 30, or at least us were proposing was changing it to 30.
So somebody, there probably didn't realize they had damage.
Yeah.
Maybe it happened in your face, maybe not down there.
We're on vacation.
Right.
But I think there should be a cap at 30 days on it, because it's also known very common 5 years later, some inspectors have damages because of house set. or something like that, so we thought 2 is insufficient in case somebody's based on condition, but they shouldn't be held responsible for time of turnover or any damage to their house that can't be.
Oh, sure.
A loss.
So looking at this, I don't like this language at all, because this is telling the public what they should be doing, not what our commission should be doing. We can say we won't accept complaints after the fact, but we can't say when they're gonna be filed.
So I wanted to say, we're looking for it right now. I believe the limitation on how long a complaint can be made is addressed in the permit.
Yes.
So we're looking for that, right? Just so you guys, we're just looking for that right now.
And they might be trying to be consistent with the permits language.
Yeah.
But again, what's our business telling the public when they should report or not? We just have to decide what we're gonna accept from them.
Right, but they need to have something, otherwise.
Well, I'm not saying to discourage it, but I just think that. When I read this and it says. Actually, I kind of read this, is it the complaint that you receive getting from the Quarry Commission, or is it someone from the public calling us or the town?
Well, that's a good point. The bylaws can only dictate or suggest, they come to the commission, but not to, like Tom, if somebody's on call, say, like, I think you broke my porch, you know, like, my railing fell off and I heard you blasted, but I wasn't in town. That's, that's his policies and procedures as far as what the company does.
Yeah.
And then what the permit that he receives from the town dictate. As far as what the commission does. Are so the commission is not seeking representing any individuals in claims against, right? We're only there to, take in information, talk about it, review it, and make suggestions to the board to, back.
So the 30 days is you're suggesting is probably that's what we're gonna accept as a commission for alleged.
No, what I hear Jerry saying is that this need not be present at all here, because that's not within the purview of what we do.
Right.
Is that correct?
We could speak as a commission if somebody makes a complaint that's 4 years old. The commission can say, well, we looked at this, we talked about it. It's such a period of time went by that we don't think we're gonna be able to, investigate this thoroughly and give you what you're looking for. Rather than saying, we're not gonna, because it came to us well beyond the 30-day limit. I think we could take each complaint on its own, look at it, and decide if it's something we move forward with. But then we're not really, so within that complaint, if you've had damage, you're telling us, right? Then we're discussing, but we don't make any decisions that affect an insurance company or the company from paying out anything, right? We stay out of that, but we might get questioned about what we did, what we saw, what our discussions were as a committee.
Let me frame this in terms, because I wrote these originally, and obviously what was inspiring me at the time I was thinking about this. Ultimately, the thought was that the commission would be in a position to make recommendations to the town as to what actions it might take. So if we had an accumulation of complaints, whether they were causing damage or not, that would be the basis for us to say to the town board, hey, here's a concern that is, not just an occasional one, it's of substantial nature. That is something perhaps you can do. We might even make recommendations as to what we should do, but ultimately we're an advisory body as opposed to one that has, you can determine some kind of outcome. So I agree with Jerry that it may not be necessary to have that clause in there, that the permit null talks about the requirements that exist for Kinsella, its operations. And it may generate complaints that come to us, but for us to say, okay, this was a valid complaint, this was not a valid complaint, in a way that, an insurance company would have to pay out or whatever else. I think you're right. Jerry.
Yeah, I think that language puts us more, it gives an insinuation that we have some kind of judicial authority, which is just advisory, and we're really not. We're just saying, like, here's what we heard, this is what we found.
So what I move is that we just scratch that clause. Does that make sense? 2 days, 30 days, no days.
And John, are you looking to see if that talks about complaints in general or claims of damage?
We're just looking for the relevant ones to
Okay.
any of this.
Um,
What I would recommend.
Okay, I think we've got it. With respect to any alleged impact relating to underground wells, the water supplies that receives notice of the injury or damage within 30 days of the incident.
Well, that's specific damage to specific infrastructure. It's not like my good china fell off the wall. That's talking to ground, water systems, right? Wells. That seems limiting.
It still doesn't have anything to do with this committee though, right?
Right. It's the permit and the procedure, right? And I don't think the intent was to forward those things.
Alleged bodily injury or property damage other than damage to underground wells and water supplies that receives notice of the injury or damage within 5 days of the incident. So the permit says for non-water, basically, if it's water-based, 30 days, otherwise it's 5 days.
So then, who are they to notify via that document? Town board? The town?
I think it's.
So no, the permit is just governing.
Yeah.
The rules, so basically, and the claimant affords it full opportunity for reasonable investigation, so.
Okay. Then
That basically valid complaints,
We're not-
in 5 days or 30 days, yeah.
And then, so, yeah, that's the permit between the town and the company, and then the company will do what it has to do.
Mhm.
We can refer people to. What we need.
Yeah, the permit sets the guidelines for what a valid complaint is relative to damages. The general complaint form, you guys don't have to, you can complain whatever you want to complain,
Right.
but understand, maybe we can add that portion, that language or a link to it at least in the complaint form to say like. If you are putting in a complaint based on damages as opposed to just saying, I felt it, these are the rules.
Yeah.
Would still take it in, but, and that might be something that this committee has to look at and say, we received this complaint 7 days after, so therefore, according to the permit.
So then, if we make a motion to adopt these, I would say that it's as amended, but also subject to the attorney review. Because these are gonna be slightly altered, and then it'll have to give consideration to the permit as well, so we'll ask attorney for Pesky to consider both, that we don't, there's no huge impact to pulling the language out. Or not being consistent with that, but I think it'll be okay, I just would want to peek at it after. We'll get subject to that.
Ooh, question for you, Tom. So you have the town permit, there's also the DEC mining permit.
Right.
Is there any provisions there for how complaints?
No. And that was the.
Okay, so there's nothing we can refer to or reference regarding that, it's strictly the town permit.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're gonna make a motion to approve the bylaws with amendment.
I think to discuss the scheduling just a little bit more. Because we're only meeting quarterly, we're trying to set a schedule for a year ahead, that's really hard to foresee where we're gonna be and commit to that. And I hate to post things to the public that they may count on, and we end up switching a meeting, because as we found out recently, it's really hard for all of us to find a day and a time that works together. So that one hand, that we can set a date that we can all put on the calendar is great, but also there's good chances things are gonna change.
Well, it does go beyond quarterly, saying it's quarterly on the 4th Tuesday.
Yeah.
Of the month that it falls in. So then that would go into the calendar. Like that, and it's typically. How all government committees work is that there's we could talk to reschedule. But that right, well, most of our committees have.
If you guys schedule stuff right now or don't, the only other thing that we'd have to do to be in compliance with like any open meetings law, the board can schedule these meetings. So like if, like let's say we have 3 tentative dates or 2 tentative dates, if that needs to change. Then prior to that meeting happening, the board would just say, we are making a motion to schedule the Quarry Commission meeting for such and such date. We'd probably look for an email where everyone's saying, yes, this works for me, something like that, but we can reschedule that public meeting. And every 2 weeks, we have an opportunity to do it, so.
So we could keep the defined regular meetings,
Yep.
and then we could change those subject to.
Cause you gotta
Agreement
remember,
of an alternate date.
even for the town board, we don't say we meet on the second and fourth Wednesdays, we adopt the full schedule of our meetings. So if the bylaw says, hey, this is the intent. And then you're still gonna have to schedule the meetings anyway, so it works.
So then just as a practical policy, we can, after this meeting, schedule the next one and have a firm date if we need to change.
Well, yeah, so it's scheduled for us by adopting that, and if that date doesn't work. We can go through that process to schedule a date.
But
But you're saying knowing that that date doesn't work for us right now in this moment during the meeting, can we?
if we're looking at the April meeting, we can agree at that time.
Does it make sense to, we have language in other committees, to meet at a minimum quarterly on the second Tuesday or whatever, but.
The only other committees we have that have any kind of like governing bylaws are gonna be the existing boards.
Yeah.
We don't really have any of those recurring ones, so we don't, it's not uncharted.
They must be rules that.
Yeah, we just don't have a
They
normal
don't
practice
stop
on it right now.
So,
I think just do it as a quarterly meeting and then set the meeting date. I mean, there's plenty of time to post it. So if you guys wanna
Gotta
just
say
say,
second Tuesday.
instead of putting a second Tuesday quarterly on there, just state that you guys are gonna meet quarterly and the meeting date will be set at the next meeting date will be set at the current meeting. Along those lines, you know what I mean? So like today, you guys set the next meeting in the next quarter, then the next meeting, you'll set the next quarter meeting. You'll set the actual date then, because I understand, you never know what's gonna happen. You may wanna blast the day we have the
just
meeting,
make it the
because
same.
it's great weather, because you know how wonderful our weather
And they
is.
can zoom in as well, right, like the other committees and stuff.
Yeah, the
Somebody has to
Zoom,
be
the
separate.
Zoom link is always gonna be at the top of the agenda, and it is the same link for any meeting that we are now zooming for the town. So my suggestion would just be that you guys will meet on a quarterly basis with a date to be determined to the prior.
Are we covered by our overall statement about public meetings being in person and virtual, or should these bylaws have a statement?
No, you guys are covered by.
No, you guys are covered.
Then we'll have to add it.
Yeah, so I would just change the wording to that you guys are gonna have quarterly meetings, and the meeting dates will be
Determined, at
Determined.
each board.
at each board meeting.
Amazing how much time and effort we spend on keeping them compliant to everything. Wow.
So I will update the wording on that to cover you guys, so you guys can. Got it.
So we're almost at the end of the hour and we still have things that we haven't addressed. Does that mean we may want to schedule another meeting before June because?
How long do you think we need? Do you have 30 minutes?
I literally have 30 minutes. I have to leave at 3:30, so. If you guys wanna keep going a little bit, that's fine.
I don't think we've got a. I mean, reviewing these and this.
I say keep going. Do you think you can do it in 30 minutes?
Yeah, no, so I know the CARES got a hard stop, so we do have another 30, you can go beyond, I don't mind going.
John can
beyond.
always, if he has to jot down,
Yeah, I can-
for enough minutes, it's not a big deal.
Or which meeting could plan.
Are you okay, Craig?
Yeah, like, yeah. I just want to make sure I can get the garbage out before the meeting tonight.
we've got a little bottle too.
So where are we with the bylaws then?
So,
Are you all happy with that, changing that language for meetings?
so you understand that that whole clause that said 2 days, then 30 days, that whole clause is now out.
Yep, I got that out, and then I'll change the wording for your meeting, so it's not nailing you guys down to a specific date each quarter.
And then the clause that says additional meetings instead of special.
Yep. Yes, sir.
And in item 4 meetings, the second bullet can go all together, because that's on 2024, and we don't need to talk about that anymore.
Correct.
Right. Are there any other adjustments or language modifications? If not, may I call the question on adopting the bylaws? I call, I don't know, I move. That's what I.
You can make that whole motion.
No. I make the motion to adopt the bylaws as amended.
Also subject to attorney review.
Subject to attorney review.
We have a second.
I was thinking,
Okay. First and a second, all in favor? Aye. So moved.
you could go.
I'm an aye.
You repeat it.
Okay, I am here, you're right, I can vote. New business.
So we've got our, these are the seismic readings for the 4 blasts that we did, 2 of them on October 8th. I believe, and 2 of them are, yeah, on October 30th. And this is result of the seismograph that was set up in the Putzer's yard. I think it's 8037. Kansas City Circle. Yes, 80 is right here, it's 8037. So this is the independent seismographs that were put up there. And you can see the different colored dots are the different readings from the movement of the earth, longitude, latitude, transverse, like there's 2 different readings there. The line that's the solid line is your level of readings, your max readings without causing damage. Your dotted line that you see below that, they still include on there, was from years ago that lath and plaster had lower tolerance for cracking than modern sheetrock. And that's where that dotted line came from on the lower frequencies. And it goes up as the frequencies go higher. One of our problems we've always fought, just for a little background, is low frequencies in that neighborhood. The low movement, you know, it's that people feel. So your natural frequency of a house is between 8 and 12, I believe. And you can see where this is where our problems lie, is the frequency. That's why people notice them. And yet our close neighbors on Salt Springs that are built on solid rock, they don't necessarily have that feeling.
You're saying where they feel in the problem is between, beyond the 8 and 12?
No, it gets less. It's kind of like somebody, you know, one person with the analogy is like going over railroad tracks. Sometimes if you go over them slow like this, you know, you feel your car bounce.
Yeah.
You feel that, you know, 30, you're going over the same set of tracks, but if you barely felt them, you know, they compare that to the frequency. And what they try and do is blasting, and we did it with they set up special timing of it. Is like, rather than catching like somebody on a swing and every time they came back, you hit them at the right moment, and you know, they kept going, they try and disrupt that natural frequency of that house and get it out of that, because that's what that house is doing, is you're catching it at the right time. So we've spent years and it's the idea that it's in that on the overburden that they're feeling that. However, all 4 of these blasts are well within the ranges, and Ethan and his email, the person that's reviews these from Fibertech, we hired the independent person, you know, which probably should have included his email up there, you know, if he reviewed them, he looked at them, they're all well within the levels for potential damage. So we, you know, we're hoping, is there any, Craig, are you getting any feedback from the neighbors in terms of, do they feel more validity having these independent seismograph readings as opposed to our readings that we do?
The short answer is no. are somewhat oblivious because they don't know the readings anyway, so what they're going to respond to is what they feel or, you know, what they experience. As opposed to this. They're aware that there is the monitor out there because that's been posted on the website. And we've had some comments saying, oh, that's good, or, you know, finally, or things like that, but. In terms of on a given last day, there's really. You know, I felt it or I didn't feel it, not what the monitor is saying. What I'd ask is, how does this correspond with the readings that you have? Your last manager, he has a temporary, like, set up.
Yeah.
I don't need a whole, you know, deal, but are they comparable? Are they a variance in any way?
No, they're very comparable, and I can include the data, but I was thinking as you're speaking to. We could put the side by side.
Sure.
And what the readings are,
And for what's worth, maybe put in a reference to when no blasting is happening, so you see difference to just baseline every day.
well, I haven't gotten any, nothing's triggered, so there's no real baseline really that there's whenever they don't trigger. You know, because we talked to Ethan about this, I think, at one point, you know, what will it trigger? We haven't had any false triggers from any events. Yeah, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing like that, but I do have the, our regular seismographs that we did, and that's only. You say 100 yards from, where this one's set up, you know,
So the device doesn't collect any data until triggered.
Correct.
Okay.
An earthquake would probably trigger.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah. And that sends out an automated email that it was triggered, and then, they get it down at, Fiber Tech. This is true, then they print out they print this out, they email this one, we also have, they've got. Information that seismograph was triggered, 'cause they got these. I think all over, at least not these coasts.
Yeah, to me, the importance of this data is cumulative over time. So it confirms that the blasting is within the acceptable boundaries of what's permitted. It confirms what the last organization, agency has set up. It confirms their readings so that looking forward, this is saying, you know, this is all within specs. This is all acceptable. It doesn't mean that because it's within acceptable levels, there won't be vibration or noise. And of course, that is sort of misunderstood generally because people go, well, if they're monitoring and I felt the vibration or, you know, I heard it, that it must be wrong. So I do think that both to the benefit of town, but also to the benefit of Kinsella, it is something that is objectively based to say this is valid information.
Might be, so. If I go back to last year, they had the tick Lyme disease presentation we put at work. Maybe Vital Tech comes to a board meeting and, you know, interested parties can. Try to have some, the commission reach out to they're gonna come to this meeting and explain what they do. Monitoring what these results mean. And what's typical. Maybe address a little bit of some of those concerns or misconceptions, like. Everything. Blasting fine doesn't mean you didn't feel or hear. It just means, right, it just means it went well and it didn't, it wouldn't cause damage or what, not that it couldn't, but. Cause I completely hear what you're saying, like, I think people think like, I heard it and I saw it, so I don't care what the machine says. Cause you are gonna hear it, or it's dying, and you may feel it, depending where you live, but it doesn't mean it wasn't within the safe and acceptable levels. Really. So if they can keep that to
But I think
that
that
one
one,
that long. If we if they were able to do it in like a 20-minute, 15-20-minute presentation, I think that would be great. You to offer.
Well, and the
Or
other thing too is we could always have part of the Quarry Commission jump on a Zoom.
Yeah.
Have a presentation to the Zoom call
Yeah.
and then post that recording on the Quarry Commission.
You know, that's a good idea too.
Yeah, Ethan, because he's based, you know, with.
No, that's okay.
anything else. South of, Will River, or six, where. And it's maybe 2.5 hours. I mean, he probably could do it more easily remotely than to come up, but he had to, you know.
And we've had remote presentations. Before.
And I can have them also for the year-end report, you know. Draft just a small little summary of the results and what we've seen, side graph readings from the last, just to summarize them. Not that it's gonna, again, I agree with Greg in terms of. Well, I felt it in my house shut, you know, but this is science and this is the best way to protect people, whether they wanna believe it or not.
And having someone like Ethan do the presentation, because most of us are laypersons, when you look at those graphs, it's kind of like, okay, well, that's nice, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that kind of expertise would be helpful.
So we can summarize that. I'll get it summarized against our current reading for those readings, and I'll get Ethan to do a summary of these results also, just to help explain, include that in the year-end reports. Out of these 4 blasts, we had, 3 complaints from each of those days. And that's common for the type of comments we get when we get the calls, you know, my house shut, you know, that was a bad one, or what do you guys do? You know, the comments are, which we've heard them before, there was nothing unusual or different than the past dozens of years or whatever. There are times.
The map, the second map.
And Tom, it shows that the unit was last calibrated on July 1st of 2025. How often does that need to be calibrated?
I think they're once a year.
You know, it'd be nice, maybe if you can provide too, just for some context or comparison of people calling them to quote perspective is also of, maybe detailing some of the other quarry sites that they have monitors and just going by way of comparison. Here's the residual overpressure and, you know, dB effects that we're seeing some of these other sites, and so it's actually something just so that, because people have no awareness of this, what's the sensor using? So then look how many you get one for just coming from James Hill. I'm sure it's the same applications.
Yeah, I always like looking, coming in on planes and stuff, which I'm always looking for the holes in the ground. And what's, you know, what's surrounding them there, like you get down, like going in and out of Charlotte, there's a tour on Charlotte there. Like, yeah, look how close that school is there. Or you go over, I went over to Italy once.
That's what I was.
And the road, literally, you're looking on both sides of the road at these huge holes in the school soccer fields right here, and they're blasted, and you're going, God, I wish these people could see this place. They don't believe it, you know.
Last time here at 7 volcano.
Marble.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see, John, if they have comparisons to other areas, but I don't. Again, I don't. I'm not sure. I guess I'm not sure what that is gonna assuage any of their concerns. You know, saying, "Hey, you guys, this is nothing. You should see what they do."
No, but I think it would show that it's not unreasonable by way of comparison, what goes on around the country. It's a necessary process. Clients, it's infrequent, in fact, the majority of the clients that have already been associated with their own quarry. Jamesville does way more frequently that the town gets way more phone calls regarding that they think are coming from one quarry, but they aren't. But I just think that the more information and clarity you can provide me, all at least with some of them, so there's.
Yeah, I've got no problem with it, I just, like I said, it's, people, and I understand that their, concerns, and sometimes it can be, alarming also, if you're not expecting it. But that's where hopefully the, notification comes in.
Are those of things.
So the map that I submitted was to show the location of where the complaints came from. And you'll notice there's the cluster that is in that one spur, it's called Changing Season Circle. And actually 5 of the 6 came from there, so from the house that it was listed at, was it 35, that's holders, there were 2 from holders, there were 2 from see 37, I would be the quick service. Complaint, no, complaints, one from the quick service, and then across the street from them is Spencer Brown. So those are in the closest proximity to the quarry itself. And then the outlier is the Leeds there on Springview. And what I asked Tom before the meeting started is, well, is there a propagation line that you can see from where the blast occurs to these specific homes? Because obviously this is self-reported data. You don't know who else was home, who didn't either report or who didn't feel anything. I can tell you, if you look at the upper part of the map on the inside of the curve is where my house is located. And we didn't have anything. So,
Were you home, Craig?
or I wasn't home, my wife was home. So on either of those blasts, on either of those days, we had nada. And so how it propagates and why it propagates is, I just thought it'd be interesting to plot. Because you have these reports, you have these addresses, but to put it visually in front of you, well, okay, for what it's worth.
Now, where the blast, what face?
Chairman. Oh, brought it in a little. Okay.
Oh, laser pointer.
Well,
Here, you didn't have to.
Passing one down.
Excuse me.
I just gotta plug it in.
Oh, you just use laser.
Oh, yeah, you just need a laser point, so it should work, right?
It's top of.
There you go.
let's see what we got right here. So on both days, we had two shots out of the 10. 2 on the 30th, or the 8th and the 30th. So I'll take that by chance.
Can I rotate it? Man, now you're asking a whole lot of me.
It's north
Oh,
south.
there we, yeah, that's, can you keep doing that a little?
I sure can.
So, let's see here. So the first blast of each day, we're up on the upper level in the new area where we just got permitted. Those are on the upper level. So, and then on the second blast, is down on this lower level here. And that's the one that we feel like is closest, well, number 1 is closest to the neighborhood. Number 2, it's on the level that's on the same elevation is the neighborhood. So, we feel like that's the one that gives, and that rock is really seamy. It's hard to blast. And we feel like we get the complaints from there. So also on the second day of the 30th was the same thing. We blasted in the upper area up in here. And then the second one on the 30th was down in here. And even though the 8th and the 30th on the lower level were the same level, the vibrations were a little higher. The second blast was when you go back a row, you end up with the blast lock, if you will. You're trying to move it out, and on both sides is the new area. If you've already blasted a blast, you've got part of it open, part of the corner open, and it's not locked in, so it can leave. When you do a blast, you're the timing of you kind of direct it, but you time your hole so that it can relieve. It would get relief. I mean, you're basically, um, you've got your shot, you know, you're obviously trying to break the rock, but if it's locked in, it's just an explosion, you know, and then by timing of each hole that you kind of direct it, but it's, when you have a locked shot, sometimes your vibrations are a little bit higher. So that could be why the first one we did, even the lower ones, a little bit lower readings, and the second one that was locked in, we're going back another 30 feet. So. And I was telling Craig earlier when he was asking if you know, the location. Or the old meeting, we used to have, we had a grid, we didn't have the Google Earth and the technology to see if there was like spots in the quarry that were more, you know, prone to having complaints or vibrations, and we did that for a lot of years. It's really pretty random. There's nothing where like, when we're right here, this is where we have our problems. We thought that was, it's very random.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you utilize LiDAR in there at all? Excuse me, do you utilize LiDAR in there at all?
The what?
It's a technology we put up, you know, put out.
For high density mapping.
Yeah, you think this could penetrate the ground with that, right? Yeah.
You can get through vegetation.
And what information?
Not just the geology, it can't.
It gets to the rocks, but it can get around trees and get to the rocks and soil. That's.
Okay, I didn't know if it would identify like places that would be beneficial to blast for material. Whatnot.
Well,
You watch a little bit of whatever Frog Ranch and then you see that and it pops in my mind, like I wonder if they use that.
You might see fractures in the rock, but they've already got that well mapped out.
And you generate enough material to work in between blasts for several months, is that how the blast works?
usually, well, we still had material left over, so that, the 8th, the 30th was, we still had material left over, so it obviously depends on the size of your shot, and, you know, it varies a lot, but not months, but it's not, you know, back in the day, like the like chemical used to blast at noon at lunchtime and 3 and chip change, you blast twice a day, every day back in the day. But they're relatively small, so.
So you, over there, like, a lot of, pushing between you and your home, so maybe it got absorbed before it made it to you. You say your wife didn't feel it that day?
There are days when we do, but it was still these ones too. So they all continue to go forward. We get those actually give me I'm not sure if it's also not.
Tom, on the complaints that people feel about telephone, the time and date it's going to receive the call, is that when the complainant said they felt the products?
When we received the call, and then we're right now, because that's the also, we're then taking the notes and then getting on the town website.
Yeah, I like the notes you put on it that explicitly says you took the calls.
Right,
You know,
right.
that's right. Yeah, good.
And that's probably changed over time, people realize they can do another way, but some still would probably like to follow.
Yeah.
So in terms of the complaints, I guess, you know, we did. Part of on the complaint form, there's a how would like to be contacted and followed up. Whether it be email or phone call, so, you know, we're gonna, after this meeting, we'll say that we review the documents and we'll discuss, you know, within the limitations of, safe blasting and,
Are you, use the response that you send out that get logged here as well? So we have a record of the, are we keeping a record of the response?
we haven't done it yet, so.
We probably should.
Would that use, I mean, something like that would probably go.
Cause these are generated.
Well, some of them I end up trying to type, if we type to a phone call, some people requested they wanted to. What was happening, that obviously the idea of this was, you know, we've always discussed these in our quarry monitoring committees and various stuff. But people never knew, I made a call, did anybody even look at it, did anybody even care, you know, and we're letting people know that it was reviewed and discussed.
So are
Do
they,
you have a summary of that in the annual report?
Yes,
So that might be sufficient, because every year he's gonna give us all of those responses together.
yeah, so these are the complaints generated from our website where the form is housed, right? Or are they a combination of from your website and from the?
they're all on your website,
Okay.
but some of them were phone calls to us that then we took notes and what we made, if you, read the bottom, it was called into our office, and then we filled out this form based on their comments. But it's just that they really wanna, we really wanna know that, want the complainants to know that it was looked at, it's been talked about, just didn't get filed in the trash can.
So if they call in, obviously, they immediately know that you received a complaint. If a person submits the form, the question I have is, how do we acknowledge that?
That's where I was going with it as well, because if the form and the complaint taking process is generated by the commission. And the commission reviews these. I think the commission should get back to the person, whether they designate you to get back to them. And I think a phone call is a phone call, and maybe you come to the commission and say, we got 7 phone calls this month, the last blast, and this is how we responded to them. And I think that person, you know, they just wanted to know, they want to have that conversation with you, but somebody who's submitting through an electronic avenue and taking the time to fill out the complaint form is looking to have a documented, you know, incident.
Right.
And we should have the responses then documented, and I think cataloged as well with the complaint itself.
I guess where I was going is, if your call comes in or your complaint comes in. After the most recent commission meeting, and maybe 2.5 months until the next commission meeting. Before there's gonna be any commission response to it, there should be some immediacy to say we received the complaint, nothing more than that. Just to acknowledge what's received.
Yeah.
Can we just have an automatic response saying there's a receipt that the thing is on?
So any complaint that's filed, they get a receipt essentially to say that we have this, it is on record. And I think there's language in there that says this will be reviewed by the Quarry Commission.
Perfect. Yeah.
So that we do have, so, you know, when it comes in, we immediately get back to them. And they get a receipt, like I said, of everything that went in there, so like even if townspeople are filling out the form, if they're given their email. Pretty much it's, before they hang up the phone, they're gonna have a receipt of that complaint being registered.
So, but I'm not, it's not of the registration, it's of the action taken and the findings, right? I just, if we have a commission that takes through this, I think the commission should get back to the person with the findings.
When you guys review a list of complaints, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that we will have somebody taking those minutes.
Yeah.
And then we will have some, whether it's Duffy or the secretary for the board, will essentially send the minutes to everybody that had a complaint review, they'll get a copy of the minutes. That way there's
Well,
no,
as long as, say, X house calls and says, I don't know what happened, I lodged a complaint back in July.
Mhm.
Somebody can go in there and find, like, this is what happened, you know, like,
Yeah. Well, it's
people saw this, it came to the commission, they reviewed it, here's what,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
and then, and the idea would be, so like, it'll be part of the public record. By being part of the minutes, but after the meeting, what we will do is to close that loop, is to send the minutes. Once the minutes are complete, send the minutes to each of those people, the draft minutes, because obviously you're not gonna wait 3 months to approve.
Right.
But that way, that closes the loop, because now they filed the complaint, whoever they filed it, they have a receipt, we have it. It gets reviewed, and then they will see in the minutes what the resolution is.
Okay.
Without, you know, because like, we're not sending separate emails, it's just, hey, everybody, you had a complaint before the Quarry Commission, here are the minutes from the meeting and a link to the meeting to watch.
Yeah, the one little problem with that is they are allowed to be contacted with a follow-up by phone.
And we can, you know, so like, there's 6 complaints.
Contradictory on some.
We can kind of go through and, you know, whether, like I said, whether it's the secretary or Duffy, we can make sure that those phone calls are going out, and we'll just say, you know. we'll read the minutes to them for that particular complaint, so they know exactly what happened, and then say, you know, if you like, give me your address, I will mail you a copy, like, we can do that.
Yeah,
Until we get 150 complaints, then we'll keep up.
it's just, I'm trying to think of the residents having trust in the process and transparency.
Oh, absolutely.
Leave it all to the company, and the commission says, you know, call the company to find out what happened. Well, the company reports back what they did, and then we keep the record, and the commission can say, well, they have a company representative who sits on a commission with us, they brought to us this information, we reviewed it all, we asked questions, and here's the findings and resolution that we reported back. But I guess the way, to me, Tom, the way you started to explain it in the beginning is like, you guys all handled it, then handled the final documentation, and then there it went. It didn't come back to the committee after that.
No, we got on the town website, we filled it out for them on the town website, so that was populated.
A phone intake, verbal intake of the.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I gotta leave in about 10 minutes.
You know, like I said, we talked about this, there's really not a lot to be said other than, you know, as I was pointing out, the level of the blasting, sometimes it's like the vibration, the complaint, the distance, these are all the independent, seismographs. We'll summarize them with the current ones for comparison purposes and, be included in the year-end report. I don't know if there's further discussions, if. So, John, they're gonna somehow take care of the, saying that we've reviewed these. That
Yep.
We don't need to
Yeah,
follow.
the town will handle the post Quarry Commission review.
Okay, great. So, I think, in regards to the blasts and the seismographs and complaints, I don't have anything further to comment. I don't know if anybody else does. So we're moving on to our purple air monitor summaries, which the changing seasons has had 2 in their neighborhood now for.
It's been October of 23 to the first one in,
So a couple of years now, and John got his working in his yard up there on the backside of the quarry, and we've also got one to the east, at Bender's house, which is not positive, he's calling his Green Lakes 5. But at any rate, it's kind of interesting here to see the different levels on the different days in the Canadian wood smoke there for a period of time was certainly relatively high. I don't know if we've really, you know, I think we're doing this is more data for baseline, I think, to get some stuff established, to see, you know, before October, we hadn't even crushed it all this year, we haven't blasted it all. So it's really establishing, I think, some data and baseline to see if we have a dust problem or not.
So if you look at the data from, I'll point to 10/10, which is 2 days after the 10/8 class. You'll notice those are among the lowest readings of the year. And if you go to 10/31, which is the day after the 10/30 class, those are also cumulatively the lowest readings of the year. The more important data for me from this is if you take the first 3 sites, those are Green Lake, Summerview, and Fayetteville 1, and the last site, which is Salt Springs, those 4 represent those that are on the periphery of the quarry. And you compare those with the other 3, which are more remote, it kind of gives you a comparison between what's happening in near proximity to the quarry versus what's happening more broadly in the community. We could go to the EPA monitor in East Syracuse and look at that data too. But what this just did, a glance tells you that there is no particular variation. So if there's variation, it's regionally by location, not by site. And Canadian wildfires effects across, the range of these sites. And as I say, ironically, among the lowest readings we have for these sites are the days immediately following blast, which I'm sure wasn't causal, but, coincidental. If you look on a given day, you will find variations. So as I may have mentioned once before, my neighbor runs his fireplace, and there are days when his readings, the site that is at, let's see, 005, yeah, Summerview, which is downwind from it, maybe 30 points higher than all the others on that given day. Wow. But
When
that's
he runs the fire public,
when he's, yeah,
we burn.
burning wood.
Yeah.
So it's sensitive, it picks up that,
Craig, do you know the frequency of these readings? Every hour,
yeah, they're hour, you can get them at 10-minute intervals.
Yeah, and then you can click on it to summarize them, for your averages, depending on the period of time you're looking for. It's pretty neat site to get on there and play with it.
If you have nothing to do this evening, visit purpleair.com, and, it's up 24/7.
So like I said, this is, I guess Craig, pointed out some interesting stuff, which is good for us, but, I think building this database is gonna be helpful down the road and, for, hopefully for our benefit and also the town saying, hey, there's really nothing around that's being affected. So I think this is great. Thanks, Craig, for sounding this in. And they're pretty simple devices. Thank you for catching one of your houses. Absolutely there. Appreciate it.
Does it identify the particulate in the air? Does it matter? Or is it just say it's just generally higher than others?
So you can do several different things. Obviously, the micron is in terms of the size of the particulate. There's ozone, I'm trying to think of what else.
And then just the PM2 is the 2.5.
So really, the only thing, if somebody was trying to correlate an increase of particulate in the air to the quarry, they could only point to that you blasted and now it's hot. But it couldn't say it was higher because you blasted, because we don't know what caused it.
So I think the idea of this, Mike, is to see or hey, look at this trend here,
Right.
and now we're starting to see, so now we gotta, hey, we gotta look at this a little closer, because this trend, I think that's what we're trying to establish.
But they couldn't draw a conclusion off the bat, it was because of the quarry, is what I'm saying,
No.
because we don't know what it is. In that particular list, we don't know if it's stone dust or whatever it is.
So the guy mowing his lawn every time we throw it next door.
Or burn his garbage or something,
Yeah.
okay. So we take further, you identify
No, it's a gross comparison opposed to, specific cause. But it does.
If your parts per million are up 10x every day following blast, show that it's attributed to that, but it's not generally.
Or we need to look at it closer with more scientific technology.
well, the reality is it's the crusher or loading trucks, it's gonna probably skew this more than the blast.
Probably, because one of the site of, the crusher is actually between the two monitors that are in Sunnyvale. So you would get some effect from that. In terms of, road dust and all, don't know if that'll be picked up. And also the prevailing wind, which makes a difference as to where you pick it up.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of,
Thanks,
I
Jerry.
guess we'll try to schedule, yeah, you get like. And Tom, yeah, we didn't get to those usually like well reports, which I love to talk about. The one thing here is the number 3 in the reports where he actually got some drawdown data and he didn't have any information about the well itself. I couldn't really figure out.
Was that the one that had we call I in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that all the time?
I think we said I, because houses up high.
Yeah.
I was Yeah, that well seemed pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them fix anything else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's the thing on homework, well, so if they drank all their life and didn't know it, they don't
No,
know.
what was really interesting was every one of those wells came back with high sodium in it.
Yeah.
And that was their big concern down at Horseshoe Lane with drinking water source protection. They were worried, and every well came back high along there. And then as I was telling Craig, and telling somebody they have this one well driller to go look inside Salt Springs Road.
I was gonna say.
Now,
Salt Springs.
now, yeah, maybe those old timers are a little smarter than,
They
and
drank right out of it, and their tongue, yeah.
yeah, and then it wasn't scientific data they had to tell them.
Because the cows wouldn't drink it.
Yeah.
All right, see you guys.
Supporting.
So, but, yeah,
Well, you don't have to solve.
they didn't need to buy salt like for them. But,
You too.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff, my daughter needs to get work and she has to borrow our car because hers is in the shop, so.
all right, John, have a good evening.
See you guys.
I apologize for going over. So I wanted to get those.
Yeah, I'm gonna, ask that we maybe adjourn just because.
Table the rest of the.
I table it because I really would like Jerry here to talk about the, I mean.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely, that's his effort. He's, but it's nice to have him. Actually, with a couple issues that can come up, one being groundwater, it's nice having him on there and, with John's background in explosives, it's a nice committee, so.
So we have a motion on the floor to adjourn and table the remainder of the agenda for our next meeting, or if you want to talk, you want to suspend that momentarily and talk about the next meeting date, or
Yeah,
should we put that out in an email to everybody since we don't have?
I think we have to put it on.
Right. So that'll be TBD, pending an email of times that are mutually agreeable, and then we'll.
The other thing is on annual reporting, one of the things that's in the bylaws was to envision that there be an annual report before. And we don't have to decide that right now, but this one is probably premature,
Yeah,
but I do think it's appropriate.
and we can do that, whether it says it or not, we obviously can amend our bylaws whenever. But we could always do that, I don't think we would give one this year probably, because we're in, how we guys. Much data that we had over last year to put that in
So,
order. Which could,
so could someone make a motion to table the well survey reports and reporting and scheduling the next meeting?
So we'll.
Second.
On favor.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if I guess we should be.
well, yeah, so you already document that we're gonna. Send an email with mutual days and times for the next meeting, and then we can, we'll outline the rest of the conversation, because we did.
Yeah, if you guys adjourn.
Okay, so there's a motion, we have a second to adjourn. Second, all in favor? I will adjourn our meeting at 3:45.